Some days my children like to think that when it's 30 degrees outside, they can walk out in a t-shirt and shorts on their way to school. And while that's not a very big risk, they're going to be uncomfortable, but it's unnecessary.
Right.
And even more unnecessary if it's 30 degrees and it's raining, they're just going to be really uncomfortable.
Right.
It's not going to change their life, but they're going to be really uncomfortable.
Right.
So, Spencer, as we think about continuing this conversation about risk and insurance, what type of insurance do we find that most clients don't have, but they may actually need?
Yeah, so when we're sitting down with new clients, it never ceases to amaze me that probably half of the clients that we're walking through financial planning with, they've never gotten umbrella insurance. They may have heard of umbrella insurance, but they've never purchased it. Now, some come in and they've got a baseline level of umbrella insurance. Some even have beyond that baseline level there, but many have either never heard of it, they've never purchased it. And umbrella insurance, big picture, is that insurance that sits above and beyond your homeowner's auto insurance and provides also some insurance for other kinds of things like liable or board of directors insurance, sometimes depending on the type of policy there. So it basically is insurance that helps protect us more than anything else against liability that we might have, whether that is we have a pet that runs out and bites somebody on the street, or we have an automobile accident, or something happens to someone on our property that's come on our property.
Right.
All of those kinds of things, the risk of litigation is very, very significant, and so we need to be able to deal with that risk in an umbrella policy that kind of sits above and beyond these other policies that's there.
Yeah. Well, and if you remember back to our auto and homeowners insurance video, we talked about, okay, maybe one car fender bender is not that bad.
Right.
Your base level auto coverage. Well, what happens if you cause a multi-car pileup on I-40?
Yeah.
That's going to be a much more significant piece than just that one fender bender.
Right.
So what are some key things that people mistake or they don't think about when they consider umbrella insurance?
Well, for most of our clients, they've saved really, really well to get to a point where in the near future, if not already, paid work is optional. So they've saved well, they've gotten to this point, their home might be paid off or very close to being paid off. They have all kinds of different assets there. And they're looking and saying, okay, when can I retire or when can I shift to a different season of life? And they don't recognize sometimes, again, with these clients that we're sitting down with for the first time maybe, that if they just use a couple $100 or maybe $300-400 a year, they can get a policy that really protects them against some of these worst outcomes.
Yeah.
Because if you have someone coming after you for over $1 million, couple $1 million, that can dramatically alter the direction of your life.
Absolutely.
So we want to look at that and really grapple with how much does it cost to be able to prevent these really negative things from happening? Because as we talked about in the auto and home owners insurance video, there's 400,000 personal injury lawsuits on an annual basis that are filed. So that's a high number that we don't want to get caught up in. It's a material amount there that we want to have some insurance to protect ourselves there. It's kind of like, we think about the sporting world, and I grew up playing some golf with my father and watching golf every now and then on television with him. And it reminds me of 1999, the British Open. If you saw that event, you might be cringing, but there was this Frenchman, Jean Van de Velde, who had played brilliantly beyond anything that he had ever done in his career up to that point. And he comes to the 18th hole at the British Open on the last day, on Sunday. So he's played 71 holes brilliantly. He has a 3-shot lead. And he gets up there and he plays a very aggressive line off of the tee. He gets a lucky bounce. And so he's, the crowd kind of sighs with relief because he's not done something boneheaded. But he's got an approach in one of the most difficult shots in golf. He's got to go over water with a 2-iron, and he's got out of bounds on both sides.
Okay.
And he hits it right.
Yeah.
And then through a circumstance of events, he keeps making decisions, playing aggressively out of rough and into water. And and he loses the tournament.
Wow.
Because he doesn't just hit easy shots. He could, instead of going that 2-iron over, he could have hit 2 easy shots, made a 2 or 3 putt, and still won the tournament.
Right.
They don't pay you any more for winning by 3 strokes than winning by 1 stroke.
No.
And even though it's not a perfect analogy, if you spend a couple $100 extra for umbrella insurance, for most of the clients that we serve, that's not going to make a difference in terms of what their financial trajectory is. It's a rounding error,
right,
for them.
Right.
So we think about it in those same terms. And another way that we could describe it would be, you're in the Super Bowl and you got 15 seconds left and you're up by 4 points and you decide to throw a slant across the middle instead of just running the ball and running out the clock and winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All kinds of different ways you could describe this. But what we want to look at is what is the amount of coverage that is wisest to have relative to one's assets overall.
Right. Well, and I think especially as you think about this, if clients have saved $1 million, $2 million, $300 a year is fractions of what they probably take in on a month-to-month basis just from required minimum distributions.
Right.
So the cost to insure is really low compared to the benefit that you receive. And that's really what we want to try to hammer home with these insurance conversations is, yes, I don't love paying for it,
right,
but I would much rather pay the $200-$300 a year and be protected far and above that.
Right.
I really hope that it never comes to having to use it, but that's the beauty of insurance is when you have it, you're really glad you have it.
Right.
But if you don't have it and you need it, then it could be really a traumatic loss.
Right. And we do want to put some kind of framework to this because insurance companies are really good at making money.
Yeah.
They're on average, they're going to make money. This is pooled risk just like anything else.
Right.
But we want to distinguish between insurance that is valuable to you in that the worst thing happens and that really alters your lifestyle and your family's lifestyle and your heirs' lifestyle in substantial ways versus insurance that on the balance, you really don't need. Bill Gates is not going out and buying life insurance.
No.
He doesn't need life insurance.
No.
A lot of our clients, we come and we look at their life insurance policies when they get to a point in time when maybe they're in their late 50s or their 60s and they've basically self-insured. And we say, rule number 1 of insurance is don't buy what you don't need.
Right. Right.
So this is different than, having Ned Ryerson, the famous life insurance salesman from Groundhog Day. If you haven't seen that scene with Bill Murray and character in Groundhog Day, it's a good one. But Ryerson walks up and says, what we dread, in all insurance sales presentations, do you have life insurance? Well, if you do, you can never have enough. Let me sell you some more. Because that's the impression that we have a lot of times in the insurance space.
Right.
With umbrella insurance, for most of our clients, again, it's money well spent because we're insuring against that worst outcome that really is quite life-changing.
Right.
There.
Right. All right. Well, so we've covered some of the big, broad overviews of umbrella insurance. Spencer, you want to take us into a little bit more detail of what is actually covered within umbrella insurance?
Well, we talked about it a little bit, but it is those areas when we have a big event and there are claims made against us.
Yeah.
So we think about, like we talked about, the multi-car pileup on I-40. But it could be something much simpler. We're in stop and go traffic. We rear end a car in front of us and we don't realize it, but there's a couple of people that have terrible neck pain or terrible issues.
Yep.
And then we've got bills that start to flow. And maybe we've got a very aggressive attorney on the other side. Those costs can add up very quickly, even if it's just a very slight bump there. We're a very litigious society. So that's one area. Another area would be anything that happens, as we mentioned, at your home. So you could have someone that you think is, a friend's helping you out and they go up and they look at something, on your deck and they're leaning over and end up falling off of the deck. Well, that can lead to a very, very expensive claim.
Yeah.
You could have someone even that you don't know that is on your property in some circumstances. And sometimes the court will decide that you haven't done what you needed to do to keep people off your property. And they may have claims against you for that as well. Yeah. So all kinds of different pieces there. If you have any pets, We have a beloved 14-year-old black Labrador retriever. He's docile, but it's not to say that something couldn't happen and he couldn't do something there. So all kinds of different risks there. And we've had a number of different clients that had similar type of animals that somehow the animal just made a decision that was very, very different than their character and had ended up with a lawsuit. Yeah. So we have to be careful of all of those pieces, but those are what helps to defend. Umbrella insurance helps to defend against those pieces.
Right. Personal injury attorneys, their billboards and ads are everywhere.
Right.
And, you laugh at some of the audacity of the commercials or some of the wild pieces of billboard material. But the reality is they make a lot of money by trying to sue high net worth people for all that they have.
Right.
And so you really want to spend the fraction of a dollar of your net worth on an annual basis to protect against this. Right. So as we think about personal injury and umbrella insurance, what do we think is enough coverage? Like, how do we consider that?
Yeah. So the baseline oftentimes would be $1 million of coverage.
Okay.
That would be the kind of the lowest level oftentimes that clients would consider. The highest level would be insuring their entire net worth. Okay. So, if a client's net worth is, $1.5 million, then it wouldn't be too much different than that $1 million of coverage. If a client's net worth is $5 million or $10 million or $20 million, then, you could scale it up. The way that we think about it, though, is if you're sued, you're going to have not just the claim against you, you're also going to have the legal expenses of defending yourself.
Yeah.
And unless you're a top flight attorney who really wants to just get in there and defend yourself, representing yourself in court is not a good idea.
No.
So being able to have that umbrella insurance also gives you capacity to be able to work with the insurance company to make sure that you have an excellent attorney that is representing you in court.
Right.
Those legal fees add up, but that is really protective. So oftentimes we say $1 million. Oftentimes will help to protect kind of a lower level claim and attorney's fees and all those kinds of pieces. Oftentimes we look at more like maybe $2 million or even a little bit more in coverage there, because that gives more space to be able to represent oneself well in court with an attorney, and then also have enough space where any kind of claim should be able to be dealt with.
Right.
Again, you could insure up to the full value of your net worth, but oftentimes we're looking at least $2 million of coverage for folks whose net worth is significantly above that.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for walking us through that, Spencer. I hope this content was helpful. As always, feel free to reach out with any questions that you may have and talk with your insurance agent. This coverage is really important to have, especially if you're a higher net worth client.
Right.
So take a look at your policies, contact your insurance agent. And again, if you're a client of ours, feel free to bring in your policy statements. And we'll take a look.
And it is important to note that if you buy umbrella insurance, it's going to be from that home and auto provider that you have. Hopefully you have those insurances bundled together, but you're going to have all of these pieces together. You're not going to have one institution in all likelihood that's selling you umbrella insurance, because it's going to need to be linked at least to your auto coverage, and usually home and auto together, so that there are no gaps in coverage there.
Great. Well, thanks y'all, and we'll see you again soon.
Take care.
This content was provided by Retirement Planning Services. We're in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you can visit our website at www.seriousretirement.com. The information in this recording is intended for general educational and informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment advisory, financial planning, legal, tax, or other professional advice based on your specific situation. Please consult with your professional advisor before taking any action based on its contents.